What's up everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So today's topic under Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is going to pertain to technical conversations. Remember that a few weeks ago, or just a few weeks ago, a developer from Rocksteady, actually an artist but still a developer in some capacity, mentioned something about the Xbox Series S. He mentioned that he thought this console was a potato. And that started a whole ruckus on the internet. Now, if you're wondering, the footage I'm using, this is a Superman game that was actually canceled because of the 2007-2008 financial crisis. And basically, no publisher would take on this game. So the studio and their original publisher went out of business. Something that really does remind us that, we are kind of, in a sense, unfortunate to have not received a Superman game all this while. And I thought, why not throw it here since we're talking about killing the Justice League? Anyways. The Series S and the conversation surrounding a developer from a studio that's actually making this game is a very interesting one. Now, many of you understand and know that the internet has a lot of knee-jerk reactions, and it's very hard sometimes to find nuance, especially when you criticize something that people hold belief to be somewhat true, in quote. Now, we're going to go ahead and look at the statement from this developer. We're going to look at some of the pertaining aspects. And I think what's going to be very, in my opinion anyways, revealing is the one thing that I've always said, which is every video game is very different in its scope, scale, magnitude, and all of its desired requirements and possible targets across the board. So let's go ahead and take a look at what was said. The screenshot of it was actually kept, but this tweet has been deleted at the moment. So this developer said Series S GPU mostly, basically talking about how they thought that if you actually take a very close, look at everything, he says, I wish gamers understood what 60 FPS means in terms of all the things they lose to make the game run that fast. Now, he's not wrong, especially taking into account that we have a current gen console that's not much better than the last gen one. Now, this is where the contention of the statement is, but we have to be fair and look at things in a bigger and a broader context, because if you actually consider what this means, this is the most technically accurate statement that you can actually bring to light, because for your game to actually run better, you do have to sacrifice a lot of different components that you could add to your game. This is the reality. You're not going to go in there and go drop a bunch of visual effects and expect that your game is going to look and play very wonderful, because you're playing it on different machines. So if you go ahead and stack your game, only the best machines, or even the best machines, may not even be able to play your game if you do not sacrifice, or in quote, optimize it correctly. And it brings me to another side of the optimization conversation. I remember having a conversation with one of my audience members, and they said, if somebody, a YouTuber who has no experience in game development and consoles needs to leave that topic untouched. And I laughed and I said, yes, but luckily I burned about 2+ years learning Unreal Engine 4. So I think I put myself in a position to try and understand why this process is in the place that it is. And honestly, optimization stomped me really hard. And it's not because it's that complex. It's because it just has many moving parts that actually have to be taken care of as things go on. So from the art side, from the programming side, from the developer in terms of the entirety of the scope and target of the game, these things all have to be taken into perspective. But here's usually how the world works. Your boss tells you, go make a game that is like this. And so for the most part, a lot of development studios don't have too much autonomy as to the kind of game that they make, especially these days where gaming is more expensive to make and the competition is much more severe, or at least a lot more brutal than it used to be. So thinking about that statement, the sacrifices that you would need to make, because one console or some consoles cannot necessarily play a game, is something that needs to be taken into consideration. But here's where I criticize this developer for that statement that was made. The fact that they said, especially taking into account, that we have a current gen console that's not much better than the last one, and then pretty much referring to it as a potato. Now, this is something that I think there's always nuance in a sense. You have to be very careful and cautious as to the way you actually describe things. And he says an entire generation of games hamstrung by that potato. That is kind of a slight to the console itself, But again, there is some reality or realistic description towards it. But there's a way you actually go ahead and say things. And I think this was where, when you're actually talking about things like this from the platform that you are, you kind of have to be a little bit diplomatic in the way that you present it. He ain't really lying. The Series S, yes, is a good system, has actually a better CPU, I think, from the description than the PlayStation 5, but its GPU does hamstring the particular console itself. So there really is some reality to that the GPU of that particular console is not necessarily the best in terms of console, generations. And this is something that Microsoft probably knew, taking into account that potentially the Series S itself might be a thing that, developers might have to make some sacrifices in terms of resolution and a few other things, but already you can see how this adds an extra layer of logistical, I would say obstacles in terms of developing, because now you have to actually focus on a very small select, console brand that is not necessarily on the mainstream target. But still, this is the work developers signed up for. So this is no excuse for anybody to not basically optimize their game. This is just saying that the entire complexity is probably what we're seeing here, which brings me to the matter at hand. This is a developer that's working on a game called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. This is a game that is actually very much anticipated by a lot of people here in the gaming community. I wonder if this game is probably not going through some optimization challenges as well because of its other delays. Remember, the game was scheduled to come out in 2022, but at this moment, we know it's coming out in 2023, but on an unannounced date. This is where we have a little bit of the challenge regarding all of this stuff. Now, when you actually think about it, it's possible to cite other video games that have been successful in bringing the Justice League to light in their own version and their telling of their game. A game that comes to mind is Injustice 2. Injustice 2 did a very good job in creating a visually appealing story. But by and large, the mechanics and systems of a game like Injustice 2 and even Injustice 1 is much, in my opinion, simpler than, say, the mechanics and the gameplay demands of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League just on paper. So Injustice and Injustice 2 are fighting games. After all of the different cinematics that basically, in quote, tell the story, the way you engage in the game overall is in a very sequential way. Like you're standing in a specific place, you're doing a fight sequence that you control one or two fighters, and that's basically it. You're not going to do much outside of the limitations of controlling the character, other than in the context of an arena and a fight stage. So a game like this is not as demanding as, say, even a simple adventure game that is a third-player game. Even an FPS game is not even as demanding as this, because the way you actually have to go ahead and actually, use your memory, your environments, and all of that, a lot of these things have been done and are structured in a way that allows for the console to perform very well. This is why fighting games can run at 60 FPS without any hassles. But a game like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League does have a different player paradigm. It does have open world traversal in a sense, and aerial traversal. I guess I should say aerial, not open world, because we don't really know how the game's going to be structured overall. That aerial traversal by itself, in my opinion, seems to be a very huge part of the demand for, the machine or the hardware in a sense, because you have to have these characters flying all over the place and basically bursting out all these VFX and all of these different parameters. And man, looking at this just from here, ladies and gentlemen, you have no idea the amount of computing power that it would take to render something like this. Now, keep in mind that another factor that we must put into place is the, quality and the experience of Rocksteady. So yes, this is a studio that will more than likely pull it off in most of their, presentations and most of their representations of the game. But we're still yet to see a lot of information about the game. And, honestly, what doesn't really help in this entire conversation is the fact that Stefan Hill and Jamie Walker have both left the studio. I don't know what this means for the entire game, but I think we're just going to basically stay, optimistic for most of us that are looking forward to the game. I think we're probably just going to keep our ears to the ground and pretty much see how the game, basically works. Because the gameplay that we're seeing right here, some of it is part of the game's gameplay, and some of it seems to be rendered as part of, like, say, an overall cinematic in a sense, or in-game footage. But we need to still get more information before we start to assess the technical aspects of things. So thanks so much for watching the video. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Let me know in the comment section if you're looking forward to this game, what you're looking looking forward to about this game, and if there are any concerns that you may have if you're playing on the Series S or looking forward to playing the game on the Series S or any of the other current gen consoles. Talk to y'all soon. Peace out.